And now, the first of our regulars here on the 61st Friday show from Radio Free UK, we have Scottie K with his view from the cab.
Afternoon, one and all. Scottie K, London cab driver, Tyler. Back and fully recharged after my wonderful holiday in Portugal. Here with my view in the cab. So, being a London cabbie, I obviously get to see more than most the stories going around about Uber. Not only are their drivers' standards woeful, but the company seems to want to absolve itself of any responsibility for its customers, whom without there would be no Uber. Now, their latest challenge is the one of an English test. You could argue whether or not there should be one, but what you've really got to look at, that so many people have missed, is why they are opposed to it. The reason is so they can bring in cheap, uneducated third world slave labour. People who are willing to earn less than the minimum wage, working 20 hours a day. It seems the sweatshop of the 21st century is now a Toyota Prius, but there is also a wider social issue to all of this. Whilst people are getting home for less than the price of a Big Mac and fries, you've got to realise this infatuation with cheap is costing more in the long run. These drivers are often housed in social housing, claiming housing benefits along with top-ups from in-work benefits. Their families will also be with them, taking school places and using the healthcare, all funded by the taxpayer. All of this comes out of our taxes, while Uber make more and more profit as they seek to destroy the taxi trade with their ridiculous underpricing, and then they have the cheek to pay hardly any corporation tax. Imagine how much less income tax we would pay if people earned proper money from these profit-driven, tax-dodging corporates. This problem is not only in the taxi industry. This cheap at all costs attitude only ends up costing us more money. I saw a trailer the other day for a TV programme where a tomato farmer was saying that if he didn't have the cheap imported labour to pick his tomatoes and had to pay British workers a normal wage, then he would go under. No. Surely he would have to charge another penny or two per tomato, and the big supermarkets would have to pay a fair price, and maybe we'd have to pay another 10p for a pound of tomatoes. But if this resulted in people coming off the dole and actually paying tax on their earnings, then the benefits bill would fall, and hence our taxes. An economist I ain't, but even I can work that out. And it's not just corporates and companies that are killing our society in this way. Our governments too want cheap labour. Look at the NHS, for example. They seem happy to bring in Filipino nurses who they haven't had to train and who are willing to work for a low wage, which is still far higher than they'd get in their own country, thus keeping the wages of those most valuable in our society down. If more Brits were trained and employed, then their taxes would cover the costs. In the same way that when we buy anything for any of our government departments, all purchases should be from British companies employing British people, all paying tax back to the British government. This would actually make the real cost far lower. It's hardly rocket science. Another thing you've got to think is who actually benefits from this cheap labour. Well, it's mainly those who have gardeners, chauffeurs, nannies and the such. They can either demand more from their British employees or drop them like a stone in favour of someone being subsidised by you and me. Anyway, back to the London cab trade. One thing I'd like to ask is why do we need minicabs? There is nothing that a minicab can do that a licensed London taxi can't. In fact, we can do more, such as pick up on the street and offer a full service to disabled people and so on. For over 300 years we have had one system and one system only for taxis. That's helped us keep standards and safety extremely high, making us the envy of the world. Then the minicabs came in, operating through a loophole in the law. And now it's a free-for-all and a race to the bottom. And for those who say we had a monopoly that needed to be broken, remember this: Every taxi driver is self-employed, i.e. an independent business, all in competition with each other. The monopoly situation only comes about with the rules and regulations we have to follow, meaning we all have to charge the same. Give us a bigger choice of vehicles, do away with the turning circle, give us better fuel efficiency and so on, and bring our expenses down, and then bring the fares down. Keep the knowledge, which has always been open to all, maybe reducing the time on it to say a minimum 2 years if full-time, 4 if part-time. There is a compromise to be had. We can still have high standards, but recognise technology can also help us, and expenses can be brought down along with the fares. The problem with this, however, is that it will mean those in TfL having to actually work for their money, and not relying on faceless investors and multinational profit-first corporates to run an integral part of London's transport system. This reduction in work ethic and shirking of responsibility is happening right across the whole of the governmental system. So the next time you buy something cheap, have a look and think about the real cost. Right, that's me done again for this week. So until next week, look after yourselves and be lucky.